A beautiful retail shelf you have over here.
Oh, it's always an evolving work in progress, and just figuring out the placement of certain things, how that affects people's willingness or openness to buy certain coffees.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little bit about this retail shelf. It's just a retail shelf, obviously, but we've seen some interesting involvement with a retail shelf. So obviously here's a coffee shop. You enter in the door and then you go and order drinks here. The shop is closed right now, but we're at Moonwake, and just wanted to kind of talk a little bit about creating valuable retail coffee experiences. Videos that I've made a few videos on this, especially with cafe experiences, with some different roasters. We've seen some stuff, especially with Mabel here when she was at the farmer's market, but now we have the shop, and part of coffee is obviously retail bags of coffee on a shelf, right? You get people into the shop looking at your coffees and so on and so forth. But I thought this would be an interesting example to show off because you have some small optimizations. Obviously, this is an ever-evolving thing, but if you can talk a little bit about what do you have set up here, that would be very cool.
Cool, yeah, this has been evolving since we've opened this shop, and I think a big part of a physical space or even merchandising is being able to touch and feel and experience the product before you get into it. So before we had a really small, pretty limited in terms of real estate of what we could put in terms of coffees. So we bought this bigger shelf to try to show off more of our SKUs and even from like a restocking perspective, have a lot more of the coffees available. And it's interesting because a lot of us, even though subconsciously we do buy with our eyes first, right? And we buy with some of our other senses. So, the great thing about putting your retail shelf, closer to the entrance is it's one of the first things that you see when you walk in. You want to make sure that it's, front and center, and even the colors. We have some really beautiful labels that, we have some fun putting together as customers can see this. They can come up, they can like hold it, and they can feel it. And one thing that it's been on our bags, we have an actual kind of Easter egg. It says like breathe in, like so you can actually like breathe into the valve and smell. We get a lot of customers like trying to squeeze the bag and smell it. We wanted to make that a little bit easier, and we started introducing, bringing these little squeaky like squeeze bottles. So shout out to Squeaky. I think they're based out of Thailand, but you've probably seen these in some other coffee shops and even in like tasting experiences. But it's just another way for customers to experience like another sensory aspect of the coffee. We do have to grind these periodically to refresh it, but you can squeeze it, and then you can get like the aroma. These things are great. They last a pretty long time, but I think a lot of customers, they want to get a sense of what they're going to get into before they buy it. And especially, these aren't that expensive, but for some other more expensive coffees, I can definitely see them, wanting to feel more comfortable about like, okay, I'm about to spend this much money on coffee. I want to make sure it smells good. And even what they might prefer, right? Some people like more earthier or more like, chocolatey notes, so you can already kind of smell that in the ground. So creating this kind of fun little interactive experience makes people, I think, more confident about the coffees that they're about to try.
Yeah, I mean, the really nice thing about this is that, well, part of coffee, right, we look at, like, these are new coffees, by the way, that just got released, like this one, right? And you're looking at these different flavor notes, and a lot of the times, coffee, and you're doing it at home, if you don't have a really good grinder, you're not grinding fine enough, you're not going to get that aromatic release. So what's really nice is, and I thought this was worthwhile highlighting, was the fact that you're grinding the coffees, you're creating that extra touch point for the customer, right? And there are a lot of people, at least, who come to this shop who aren't that nerdy about coffee, right? They're brand new, and they look at a coffee like this and they're like, I didn't know that you could have coffees that have any of these, right? Any of these flavor notes. Especially, this is a great example of a very potent coffee that I think invites conversation to this entire coffee thing, right? And that is a physical thing that exists that somebody can touch that lets them, smell the coffee and experience part of that aromatic experience. Plus also, these are coffees you do serve, right? So you can kind of create that entire, like, when people are waiting in line, they can smell the coffee and maybe they can, order the coffee in the shop and get that full kind of experience, right?
Yeah, it helps them decide, for instance, like if they want to order a pour over and they're not sure, okay, like I've never experienced, say, like a more light roast coffee. What am I expecting? And this helps open up the conversation to be like, oh, why don't you give this a smell? It's going to be very different than maybe what you're traditionally used to. And just making it a little bit less scary for someone to, want to choose, say, a light roast pour over or some of our more unique coffees. That was the great thing when we had these at the farmers market, was people were deciding to, pick their pour overs, and then they could squeeze them, and, here you have to make your decision pretty early on before you get a chance to smell it, like when you order the pour over. So this is kind of like a, how do I put it? Like even further upstream. So that way you don't have to decide to buy the pour over before you want to try and smell it, and people can kind of experience that beforehand.
Yeah, have you found that people buy more coffees or are more interested in like people grab these more, that you added those there?
I think, yeah, I have to double check with my staff, but from what I've seen so far, a lot more people are like at least interacting with it, and it does make the conversation a lot easier when they ask about like, oh, can you give me a recommendation for what coffee I should buy, and then we can guide them through, say, oh, like why don't you give this a smell, like see if this is really interesting for you, I think it just helps people like feel more comfortable with what to expect when they get a coffee. I think a lot of customer service and being in commerce and all of that is, how do you manage expectations and close the gap between what you think a customer is going to get and what they actually get, right? So, this helps kind of close that gap and open up that conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's such a great idea, because you can smell some of these coffees, like they're very potent, and you can smell them through here, but it's a different level between whole beans that have aromas versus whole ground with all of that aromatic release, right? So, even a shelf like this, right, there are 3 layers. You can have various coffees at each of these levels, and it's super simple, right? This is like an incredibly simple thing that I think a lot of shops can just add and instantly increase value, especially for retail people walking into your shop, right? You walk into the shop, oh, what are these? Oh, wow, I didn't know coffee could smell like this. Or, oh, wow, this is like a crazy processed coffee. Wow, that smells amazing, right?
Yeah, just giving people closer experience to, again, make them feel confident about what they're about to experience with the coffee. And a lot of retail, it's going to be challenging to convince someone to buy a coffee a lot of times. So just ways for us to, give them information and manage their expectations as well. Yeah,
next up, you're going to need to have little samples of brewed coffee
here,
gosh, right?
Yeah,
so people can be like, oh, wow, it tastes like strawberry jam, instead of, smelling it. But this lets you at least get a good idea, because a lot of these coffees, like if you're brewing them correctly, those flavor notes, the cupping notes that you're seeing on the bag there, that's what you're going to smell. You're going to smell something similar. This has been such a small optimization that I think is very worthwhile mentioning. So I wanted to post a video about this.
And these are like not super expensive, and it's just hopefully not too difficult in the morning. You periodically like refresh it. That's just the only thing, is you want to make sure you keep the grounds nice and fresh. So maybe every 1 or 2 days you can refresh the grounds. Yeah,
but you're only grinding a little bit of coffee in there, and you're able to communicate a lot more with just that little dose of coffee, which is cool. So yeah, that's all I wanted to share today. Thank you, Mabel, for being on camera, and check out these new coffees.
Yummy smells, all these really fun experiences. I will say though that sometimes the smell is could be different than how you brew it. But that's also how fresh the coffee is and whatnot. So just little things to help make customers more excited about what they're about to buy, and what they might experience as well.
Yeah. Okay, cool. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.